Hey everybody, it's Kyle Jetzel, your driven autism dad. Hey, I wanted to do a quick video today about a lesson my dad taught me when I was quite a bit younger. About well, why don't I just tell you the story? It's pretty interesting. Um, so my dad, growing up, we grew up in a kind of a poor neighborhood in inner city Dallas in an area called Oak Cliff. Um, and my dad just happened to be a get rich quick guy. So it's interesting. My dad would go from one idea to the next idea, uh, all in an effort to get rich quick, right? He'd never really put in a lot of time into any one idea. He would just try it, and if it didn't get him rich real quick, he would jump to the next. And so, growing up, I remember all kinds of things he tried, pretty interesting things. One of my favorites, though, was a brand of prepackaged food. I think it was like food that they were sending up into space with the astronauts, and it was called Eureka, if I recall correctly. And my dad thought, hey, if I stock up on this Eureka food, I can resell it. He even got a storefront and purchased, I want to say at the time in the maybe late 70s, early 80s, thousands upon thousands of dollars of prepackaged food called Eureka. And it was in these little silver pouches. You know what I'm talking about. They have them now. They're everywhere now. But back then they were pretty unique. And got a storefront, invested a lot of time and energy into it. It never really panned out. And I remember for years after that eating two things all the time: Salisbury steak, prepackaged Salisbury steak, which if you try to give me a Salisbury steak now, I'm not eating it. It's not happening. And the other one was a steak and noodles. I can't remember the name of it. Beef stroganoff. That was it. Beef stroganoff, which I still to this day don't mind. But for years I didn't like it because of eating so many prepackaged. We ended up eating all the food. The good news was that was one of his efforts that resulted in us at least having food we could eat, right? So my dad continued to do this throughout my life, and as I grew up and left the house and got married and started to have some success of my own, my dad would reach out to me on a consistent basis and say, "Hey Kyle, I got this great idea. This one's the one that's going to hit," right? And on one occasion, this is pretty funny to me. He actually found and became a distributor of um, beef jerky that was made from uh, exotic. It was exotic beef jerky, so it was wild boar, and it was bison, and I wanted alligator, and some of this other stuff. And he said, "Hey, if you'll help me get this into stores, then I can keep it running." And so I was pretty excited about it to help him out, right? And I actually spent a half a day, and I took these cases of these jerkies, alligator and wild boar and bison and a few others, and went to gas stations all over town. And I was living in Red Oak, Texas at the time, a little town just outside of Dallas, and I drove to all these little smaller gas stations, independently owned gas stations all over town, and sold all of it. And as I was selling it, I got the business card of the owner who was at the gas station, and he said, "Hey," and I said, "I'll have my dad, who runs this thing, give you a call every couple of weeks, and just make sure if you need more stock, he'll just deliver the stock." And so it was pretty exciting for my dad. He was thinking, "This is it. This is the one that's going to make me rich." Well, I didn't know it, but my dad didn't really follow up, and so these guys ran out of stock, and it all kind of fell apart. So for years and years, I remember him calling me with a new idea. And when the internet hit, he called me with a new idea. And when this hit, he called me with a new idea. And at one point, I remember he called me. I was driving my car, and I answered the phone. He said, "Kyle, I think this is the one," right? And so he told me the idea. And as he told me the idea, I realized it was kind of another one of these get rich quick ideas. So I said, "Dad, do you ever, in the nicest way possible," because I love my dad. My dad was a great man. I said, "Do you ever think that this is just a bad idea? I mean, all these get rich quick ideas have never really worked for you. Um, do you ever think this is just kind of stupid to keep doing these get rich quick ideas?" And my dad, in his infinite wisdom, I call it that all the time because he always had a way of impacting me. He got quiet for a few seconds and then he said, "You know, what's the worst thing that can happen? I could die trying." And, I remember hearing that and thinking, that's really not, that doesn't make me happy. It just did. The idea that he would just die trying to get rich quick. And the fact is he never did get rich quick and he died trying. But, the more I thought about that statement, what's the worst thing that can happen? I can die trying. It really started to impact me in a positive way because I started to think about how, if we're doing something, first of all, it kept him buoyant. It kept him happy. My dad was a bubbly guy. He was a happy guy. He left a wake of happiness everywhere he went, as a matter of fact. He was a wonderful man who really impacted people's lives for good. Even though he never got rich, he never gave up. And it always gave him hope and it always gave him energy and it always made him buoyant. And he died trying, and that's okay because he never gave up on that, the excitement of it and the buoyancy and the way it made him feel, the hope that he had in that. And so as I got to thinking about, as I was trying to, there was a time in our family where we were really struggling as a family. And I made a commitment that I was going to restore happiness and joy and figure out a way to keep that in our family. And when I first started that, I struggled quite a bit. There was a lot of things that were happening that were seemingly causing us to not be able to live in that environment, a happy, fulfilled, joyous environment, even as our sons were having meltdowns and having difficulties. And I remember that story about my dad and him saying, what's the worst thing that can happen? I can die trying. And it really resonated with me as I was going through this process because you know what I thought? The idea that I can put our family in a position where we're happy and buoyant and joyous most of the time is valiant. I felt like that was a valiant effort for me. And so I thought to myself, you know what? I don't care if I ever succeed. I'm going to keep trying stuff and I'm going to keep working at it. And the worst thing that can happen is I can die trying, right? I can die trying to create a world and a family and a world in which my family can find joy and find happiness, even as we face meltdowns, even as we, struggle with new things, even as my kids have anxiety over things. I was going to die trying to figure out a way to bring that kind of environment into my home. And, the good news is I didn't have to die to see the results of those efforts. Like my dad died trying. He never really got rich, but the hope and the joy and the buoyancy that it gave him impacted me and so many others. And so, I know a lot of times as dads, especially as driven autism dads, we try and we try and we try. And it seems like we can't ever succeed. But I want to plant in your head this idea. Never give up, right? Keep looking for answers, keep working. Because the worst thing that can happen is you can die trying. But at least if you're trying, it's going to give you hope and give you energy and give you drive to succeed in that area. If you do, I can help you shortcut the process, obviously, because we've done it and it's principle based. It's not based on your kid's diagnosis or any outside influencing. It's all based on you, the dad, right? If you're a driven dad and that's your goal, to give your kids the best chance at success and to help them fulfill their whatever potential it is they can fulfill. And it's your goal to have a happy family. And that's what you want really bad. Contact me and I'll let you in on our program that'll show you how to do that. But anything, the lesson that my dad taught me is that anything that's valiant, anything that's worth doing is worth doing until. And that until may be until you die, right? Just like my dad did. My dad died trying get rich quick schemes. He never accomplished it, but it kept him happy and it kept him buoyant and it gave him hope. And that kept him just impacting other people's lives for good. So dads, I want you to know it's a valiant effort. It's a valiant effort to want to make your wife happy. It's a valiant effort to want to see your kids fulfill their true potential. It's a valiant effort to try and keep working at trying to figure out how you can create a world and a home where your family can thrive. That's a valiant effort. If you die trying, you haven't died in vain. You died trying, right? And that'll keep you full of energy, full of life, full of hope. So don't give up. That's my message today. Don't give up. If you've looked everywhere else and you still want help and you haven't found some answers, reach out to me. I'd love to be helpful. And that's my message for today. The worst thing that can happen is you can die trying, and that's not that bad. So have a great day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.